wearing jackets because it's really friggin' cold outside, although it's supposed to warm up here just in time for golf season and the Summit League Tournament. Welcome back to the KDLT Sports video blog. He's Mark Ovenden, our sports director and of Calling All Sports. I'm your weekend anchor, Zach Borg. Mark, let's get into it. It's March Madness officially now, and it's probably one of, if not the premier events in our state every year now, the Summit League Tournament at the Premier Center, too. How much are you looking forward to seeing this thing in the new digs?
I think it's going to be great. We interviewed Tom Duple, who's the Summit League commissioner, on Thursday when they had their press conference. And Tom loves it in Sioux Falls. It's almost become like a second home for him, and he's really proud of how well the tournament's done here. He was just like
beaming?
Yeah, it was almost uncontrolled joy when he was talking about how nice. As he said, this is our premier event. It's at the Premier Center. It's just a beautiful venue, and if the right teams win,
it's going to be
full. It could really be incredible. Yeah.
Bodes well too, because I know there's been some talk that maybe in a few years Omaha might make a run at getting this tournament. Good luck with the facility they have here in Sioux Falls, and of course it's also maybe a bit of a test as well. If we're ever going to get the men's tournament for the Nationals here at some point, that could be a test as well.
I think we'll get that as soon as we get another hotel that has a restaurant.
Yeah, that too. Well, of course, it's going to be fun to see the new building, but we all go there for the games. So let's start breaking down the matchups. Obviously, we don't really care about people that aren't in South Dakota. So if you're a North Dakota State fan, go to Fargo.
Wow. Okay.
Or a Denver fan.
A little harsh.
A little harsh.
Well, yeah, but there's Dan Olson. Yeah. His family actually, they're gonna be cheering for Denver because that's his son.
I'm gonna call an upset in that one in the 2-7 game on Saturday, because Denver has lost twice in overtime to North Dakota State, so I think they're due to finally beat them, and they're a tough matchup. Plus, I have a feeling all those Jack fans who are going to be left over from the first game are suddenly going to become Denver fans to root against NDSU.
Absolutely,
so I think that could be the one big upset to keep an eye out for.
Although they'd be rooting for the son of a former Coyote.
I think they wouldn't. I think it's far enough down the line they could probably get away with it.
I agree.
Let's preview our teams. Obviously, South Dakota State is the #1 seed. They're going to play Western Illinois, who have beaten, I believe, 14 or 15 straight times. This was the same matchup we had last year in the first round. They play on Saturday at 6 o'clock, followed by that NDSU-Denver game. The Coyote men take the floor the following day at 6 o'clock against Fort Wayne. The last matchup of the night is Oral Roberts and IUPUI. It's the men's tournament's so wide open. I think it's going to be unpredictable, to say the least.
Yeah, I think it's too bad the Coyotes have to play Fort Wayne right out of the chute. Of all the teams coming into this thing, aside from your two teams that finished up at the top, Fort Wayne is, I think, maybe the most scary. We've been talking about them since
for a while, but
early in the conference schedule.
They have kind of struggled here at the end because they had that big winning streak. Then they lost 2 out of 3. They lost at NDSU and they lost at home to Omaha, who's at the bottom of the league.
Yeah.
So technically, the hottest team coming into this tournament is USD, who's won 5 out of 6, save a stinker against Denver.
Denver, yeah, that's true. Well, they have been playing a lot better, and that game against Denver just made no sense because they've been playing well, and they got blown off the floor. Brett Olson, in fact, had 27 points in that game, and he looked like the player of the year in the conference for sure. So it's a chance here for the Coyotes, and they've been better on the road than they have at home. So I talked with Craig Smith here a couple of weeks ago, and they're going to look at this as a road trip coming to Sioux Falls, but a road trip where they've got their fans there supporting them.
Yeah, I mean, what do we think the fan support is going to be like for USD? I mean, this is the highest expectations I think both of their teams have ever taken into a Summit League tournament in the 3rd year. It's been a lot of Jackrabbit fans, especially when they play each other on the women's side. Are the Coyote faithful going to represent from Vermilion this time? Absolutely,
because last year a lot of them couldn't get tickets. Jackrabbit fans had been there before, and they kind of knew how it went to buy the tickets up early. And now with the Premier Center, there's enough tickets to go around. So I think there's going to be a lot of blue, and there's going to be a lot of red in the stands all throughout the tournament.
Before we head over to the women's side, we could see this in the men. Again, you don't want to get ahead of yourself, especially with that Fort Wayne matchup for USD. We could see State and U round number 3 in the semifinals on Monday night. How much bearing does the last game, because they played each other on Saturday, and U won 80-64. Now, I know there was not quite as much riding on it for SDSU because they'd already locked up a lot of things. How much do you think? How much can we take away from that game if these two play again on Monday night?
Certainly gives USD a lot of confidence going into the game. So if anything, you can say it gives them that emotional edge because they know they can beat South Dakota State. But ultimately, it's not like, well, USD is the better team right now. You can't say that.
Right.
It was the last game of the regular season. SDSU had nothing to play for other than pride.
And they could have won the outright title.
They could have won it outright. Yeah, they were still playing for some things. But I wouldn't be too concerned if I was a Jackrabbit fan because this is when it really matters.
Well, and we talk about the fan support for USD. It's always been there with State at this tournament. They're opening up more levels of the arena now. I think they put another 1,000 or so seats on sale today in the upper bowl. If they get 9,000 to 10,000 in that building, can it become Frost Arena South or Frost Arena Squared? I guess since it's twice the size of Frost.
Well, depends who they're playing. Frost gets pretty loud. That's my favorite venue in the state for basketball. Yeah. But we'll see what the event center is going to be like. If it's got a lot of people in there that are making a lot of noise, maybe it'll be just as loud. I just don't know yet. I've been in there for two hockey games where it was full, and that was fun. But a hockey crowd isn't making the kind of consistent noise that a basketball crowd is because there may only be 2 or 3 goals in a game, whereas in basketball you get on runs, you get dunks, you get plays that are going to bring the house down, and I think there's a lot more potential for noise in there in the basketball tournament than there ever is for a Stampede game or even a football game too for the Storm.
Yeah, I agree. They're moving on to the women's side. We're going to have a doubleheader right off the bat on Saturday. It'll be the USD women who are the top seed. They won the conference title. They're going to play Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne's women not nearly as good as the men this year, so that looks like a winnable matchup. That's at noon, followed by SDSU and Denver. Those two teams actually split. Denver did win out in Denver, and of course the Pioneers went on a run last year and almost beat USD in the title game.
Right.
I guess the first thing, before we talk about what could happen, a lot of people are already kind of looking ahead and saying it's going to be SDSU and USD. In the championship. I still think you got to watch out because Oral Roberts has a 6'7" center in Vicky McIntyre. Western Illinois, I think, could play USD in the second round. Of course, last year that was what started the run for USD, was that buzzer beater. And last week they played the Coyotes to a 3-point game in Vermilion. So you want to assume it's going to be those two, but I just don't. I don't know if you can.
You can't. I mean, I'll use the Super Bowl as an example. The Patriots and the Seahawks were the top seeded teams.
Yep.
That's very rarely happened in the Super Bowl. So the odds of the 2 top teams making it to the championship game in the Summit League tournament aren't very good. I'd be mildly surprised if they both made it through. Not based on talent, because I think they're the 2 best teams, and it just would be great to see them playing for the title on Tuesday. That place would rock.
1 o'clock on Tuesday, if that's the title game, by the way. They've been close matchups each time, too. AJ said, I think, after each one, this game could have turned on a shot for either team. Who would have an edge, in your mind, if it's State and U for the women?
I think USD has the edge because they won it last year. That's probably my only reason. The fact that they won the regular season, it wasn't like they finished way ahead of South Dakota State, but they've got some players that have played in the NCAA tournament. And it's not just because they won the Summit last year. It's because they went to Ames and played Stanford. And played them pretty well, really.
Yeah, as well as you're going to in your first appearance against that kind of a team.
Aside from Polly Harrington, all of those players are back. So that's why I feel like they've got the slight edge if those 2 teams make it to the title game.
I think they're my pick, too, and I think they just have a little more balance. I mean, we look at it every time we look at their box score. The leading scorer only has about 15, but they have like
10 players who can score.
And I would still, in my opinion, although the top seed you never know in this tournament. If there's a year for a number 5 seed like USD to go through and win it, it would be this year. But I'm still sticking with SDSU on the men's side just because I think, especially if they're getting 9,000 to 10,000 fans in there, although the USD thing could negate that, I have a tough time seeing them losing if they're getting 9,000, 10,000 fans in there. But it's happened before.
I would agree. I'd certainly put they'd be my favorite to win on the men's side too. Cody Larson's just made a huge difference for that team. You know,
newcomer of the year, Parks too.
He went through a lot to even get to South Dakota State. I think he's just it's like a breath of fresh air. It's like a second chance. It's a mulligan.
Yep.
And he's taking advantage of the mulligan. He's making birdies and eagles all the way along the way, and he's been a great presence in the paint for South Dakota State this year. I don't know where they're going to be next year without him, but we're not worrying about that right now. Yeah, Parks has been playing well down the stretch too. About midway through the season, he really started to catch fire offensively and started scoring the kind of points that Scott Nagy thought he would.
And then also Marshall, you talk about midway through the season when he became eligible. Yeah. Those two were the newcomers on the newcomer team. Parks was the newcomer of the year. Larson was the defensive player of the year. Again, we're going to have a lot of coverage of the Summit League tournament online on every platform, so of course stick with KDLT. This guy will be out there live on Saturday. It's going to be a fun time, it always is, but we've had a lot of tournament action already. That's what's making this fun for me, I imagine for you too, is how well our local teams have been doing in every other tournament right now.
Yeah, to have Northern's women and Augie's men both win the NSIC tournament and advance to the regionals, couldn't have been any better. Could not have been any better. I was really happy in particular for Northern because you know, they stunk it up in that championship game last year.
And that was just a bad game all
They didn't
around,
stink at all this one because they played Wayne State, a team that scores points in just huge amounts.
Yep.
And they just put their thumb down on them. They held them down. 45 points is all Wayne State scored. That's incredible. That's like holding Augie's men down to 50 points.
And more than that title game were the two before it. Because they were down at half in both games to Augustana and Duluth, same score in both games. And then that Duluth game, they were down by 10, I'd say like midway through the second half. They go on a 17-0 run. I mean, that's where you really saw some of the seniors and some of that experience from last year where they just they put their foot down. They were not going to lose.
That's Mankato, by the way.
Yeah, Mankato, my bad.
And it was Amy Williams' sister who was coaching Mankato and just about ready to have a baby. We were hoping she wasn't going to jump up and down too much on the sidelines because it could have been bad.
Might have done him a favor knocking about that early. I don't know.
And she's been great too, by the way, with that team. Tim Gusso's daughters. Tim, who coached at Madison and Spearfish. But they were down by 10 with 12 minutes to go in the game, and I was getting ready to leave for my radio show and thought, I'll stick a little longer. I just want to see if they can make a run. And I said to the guy next to me, they have got to start stopping Mankato because they can't trade baskets. Well, they stopped them all right, and they're another high-scoring team that they held down to 52 points. So they're playing great defense. They've got Rachel Krogman, who, in my opinion, you know, Shantiva actually had a phenomenal year for Augustana, but Rachel Krogman is, I mean, she rebounds, she plays great defense, she's kind of she's the pulse of their team, and they follow that. Sadie Stotesbury of Washington High, she had a great tournament. Megan Muchler, 18 points, 8 rebounds, 7 steals, 7 assists in the championship game.
And she's the defensive player of the year, too, so she makes such a difference on that end.
Right, those numbers don't get any better than
Megan
that.
Witashik's sister, Paige, had some big games. The funny thing about that Mankato, last note on that one, was before they started that run, actually, Fredrickson was trying to call a timeout. He didn't get it. They went on the 17-0 run. It was probably the best timeout he's never been granted. I think he said as much afterward.
And they just carried that over into the championship game. We're up 8-0 and never looked back. They rolled Wayne State.
And on the men's side, I know the championship game was Augustana and Moorhead. Augie kind of had control of that. I know Moorhead made a little bit of a run toward the end. The Classic was the semifinal with Northern State. And by the way, both Northern's going to be in, too. They were ranked 6th or 5th in the last regional ranking, so they're in. But that was one of the best basketball games you are going to, if you paid to get into that one, you got your money's worth.
It was entertaining. I don't think either coach would say it was one of the best games.
From an entertainment standpoint.
Right, because it was close. Yeah. It was a Northern game, and that's why I was surprised Augustana won it. Northern's men and women both play a really tough defensive game, and they want to have it be a little bit lower scoring, and that's exactly what Paul Sather's team did. They got the game to their pace, and they had a chance to win it at the end of the game. They also had a chance to win at the end of overtime, for crying out loud. That
after Dan Jansen hits the
heave almost went in, but yeah, Dan Jansen came up really big for Augustana. Had a kind of almost a first half where he wasn't there. I think he had 4 points, but he ended up with 19. And then in the championship game, he had 0 points. at halftime. Ended up with 21, scored them all in the second half.
He's like a Dirk Nowitzki. He can do it inside, and then he can step out for three.
And Casey Schilling.
Schilling.
2 of his 3 games. I think he had 30 points and 15 rebounds in the first game of the NSIC, and then he had 28 points and 14 rebounds in the championship game. And he spoke with so much enthusiasm and confidence about his team after the game was over. I just wanted to play for him at that point. It was like, yeah, we can win this national championship, Casey Schilling, because you're going to lead us there. Well, and then they got Dan Jansen, who's the player of the year in the conference.
Oh, and you wanted to sing for him, too, and you saw the Augie were singing on the sports
Augie, 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 Augie.
My girlfriend says you should sing at the start of every sportscast. I think the viewers would agree.
At the start of it?
Every sportscast. Sing.
Why? So people will change the channel?
You got a nice voice. You know, it's funny. It's kind of worried. Although it was a gutting loss for Northern State,
yeah,
you really felt bad for him. Might kind of work out in the end for him though, because the regional's going to be here now.
Then their fans can.
And they could get. I think they're going to get a third shot at him. I mean, they'd have to go through some people, but I mean, and it could have been up in Moorhead too. But this is the closer drive for them. So it could still work out from Northern pretty good, and I think they're a dangerous team.
They're familiar with the court, too. I mean, there's a little bit of a home court edge for them over all the other teams that'll have to come here anyway.
And also, one last note, we want to talk a little NAI, but congrats to all our state wrestling champs, too, last week. And didn't get that out there. We had Parkston winning the state B for a 3rd straight year, and Pierre winning their 3rd title in 4 years.
And that's without Brady Reef.
Yeah, Brady Reef, who, of course, went off to Iowa to start his football career. Parkston just rolls on.
And Pierre has won, what, 3 out of 4, and it came down to the last match.
Yeah. If Aberdeen had gotten a pin, Aberdeen would have won a second straight.
I mean, it's about as exciting as it gets at a state wrestling tournament, so that was great. Before we wrap it up, too, Dakota State wins the NSAA championship at Jamestown. They had lost twice during the season to the Jimmies, and Bryant Allen had 23 points and 9 rebounds.
He had a 40-point game in the quarterfinals.
Right. They won 66-65, and they had to win, or they weren't going to go to the tournament as an at-large. They wouldn't have gone as a 16
and
15
I don't think Jamestown, who had the best record, like 21-9, they didn't get in either. So that was a one-bid league, and they win it.
And Dakota Wesleyan ranked. They're going to be the 5th seed in the NAIA tournament.
They were the first at-large
in Missouri, and Matt Wilbur, the coach of the year in the league. They had several guys that were honored.
Regular season champs.
Yeah.
Co-champs.
Yeah, and Midland, the team that beat Dakota Wesleyan, drilled Morningside by over 20 points at Morningside at Alley Gymnasium.
And that was in the Midland
in the championship game.
And I was at the Midland Wesleyan game, albeit like for 15 minutes, but the Midland game in the Corn Palace came down to the last few minutes. Dakota Wesleyan kind of struggled, but they were still in it and just missed a couple shots to tie, and they lost by 7. So yeah, you talk about drilling them at Morningside, looks that much more. Makes the resume for Wesleyan look that much better. Right. It's been what can you say? It's been a championship year. And let's hope we add 2 more here on the Summit League this week. But it's been a championship season. We'll have championship coverage all week long. For Mark Ovenden, I'm Zach Borg. Enjoy the Summit. Enjoy whatever you're doing this week. It's going to be beautiful.
See ya.